Joining us now is a longtime friend of ours. She's done this show every year since we had her on that year that she knocked off Oklahoma and New Mexico. When was that? 2018. What was that year that the Unique beat Oklahoma in the regular
I think
season?
that was 2018.
18.
Yeah.
You agreed to come on, and you still agree to come on even all these years later. And our tradition, unlike any other this time of year. As I speak of Boston head coach Ashley Waters, kind enough to join us here during a busy schedule. And sir, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Just in the thick of it. I feel like season comes quick and then happens fast and ends quick.
Ain't that the truth? You're right. Usually we have you on either before your West Coast trip or right after your West Coast trip, but you've been busy. You've had a busy schedule, a challenging schedule. How do you feel about your team at this point in the year?
I'm happy with where we're at. I feel like we've had some, the normal preseason growing pains, but I feel like they've performed when they need to perform. We've had a couple games that I wish we could, start over and redo, but I feel like that's the case for every coach in the country right now. But I think looking at our record and looking at the experience we have and the staff we have, I feel like, we're exactly where I thought we'd be. And I always have high expectations, and I feel like, they're kind of meeting them where they are right now, which is a really great thing.
And you really a challenging schedule. I mean, as I kind of look back in your schedule, you started the year in Tampa, up there at beautiful Tampa, Florida, home of South Florida. I know that place very well. It's probably the closest you and I have been in geography wise. But you beat a very good South Florida team and beat them handily up there in their park to get the season started. Later in the season, you've traveled to Charlotte, where you beat Georgia Tech, an NCAA tournament team from last year. You beat Penn State twice, and Bailey Partial is one of the better pitchers in the country. And then that West Coast trip that you tend to have, it was one of the more successful trips for you from the standpoint of, you beat, teams like San Diego, you beat Cal State Fullerton, run rolled them in their park, and they've beaten marquee teams this year. You knocked off Baylor in Long Beach as well. They were ranked in the top 16 at the time when you beat them. Just take me through your scheduling there. You picked up some marquee wins.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, I'm not afraid to lose, and I think I've said that every single year. I think you should play the best in the country, and you need to find a way to kind of challenge yourselves and make yourselves better. So, I feel like for us going against some of those West Coast teams and a Georgia Tech and a Penn State and you got to put yourself in a position where you feel like you can actually be challenged and get better. So I'm proud of the way the kids performed. Obviously, I think California has been, an awesome trip for us. I love getting out there. I think the coaches out there do a really great job and they have really great programs. And we're really proud to obviously, come away with some of those wins. But, I feel like even amongst those wins, I look at some of our losses and I feel like we've almost taken a little bit more away from those. So, softball's a really challenging sport and a really difficult sport in the sense of you never know who's going to win, but you also don't know what you have that day. So I think every coach in the country wishes they had a crystal ball that could say, hey, I'm going to go with this pitcher today because I know she's a better setup for this team or this, you just never know. And I feel like for us, some of the losses that we had were losses that, I don't think we were necessarily beat. I think we beat ourselves. So I think I take more from that than I do the wins. I think we win when we show up, we pitch, we execute, and we put some runs across the board. And, you got to find a way to continue to do that over and over again. I think that's the hard part in our sport.
Like I had you 5 years ago in Oklahoma. That was a big deal for your program. You've obviously grown your program to the point now where you're beating teams every year. And now it's to the point where people, not that people expect it, but pretty much they're not as surprised when you knock off marquee teams. And I know from your standpoint internally, you're not surprised. You expect that now. Is that the mindset that you have with your players?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always going to be this underdog approach because I think we're always going to be the underdog, right? In comparison to the Power Fives, which I think that mentality, it's, I think they keep saying it this year, our kids like, why not us? Why not us? Right. And that's the truth. When you show up to the field, why not us? Right. We're capable. I think for us, like the glass ceiling and we're just trying to break it and shatter it and continue to climb through it and find the next ceiling and break it and shatter it and climb through it. And yeah, I mean, when I took this position, I wanted to put BU back on the map. And, I'm going to give a shout out here to all the alums who started in the 1980s, because I'm going to be honest, like this team has been on the map before. Right. So, I think for us, it's a matter of, it obviously has the capability to be there. It's just a matter of, can you find the consistency to do it? Can you find the right recruits? Can you find the right kids? And I feel like in the past couple of years, I've been really fortunate in my 8 years at this, that we've had some really, really awesome players, really awesome kids who have shown up in a big way on big moments.
Let's start with talking about your offense. You're hitting 311 as a team. Give me your thoughts on your offense this season. What has stood out about your offense success, and what areas you think is still the best to come?
Yeah, I mean, I think for the top three are three of the best. I mean, Kayla Ronson might be one of the best hitters in the country. There is not a pitcher that I haven't seen her hit. And that is an absolute fact. I mean, she is all-American type caliber. And I think her stat line this year is even better than it was last year at this point. But she's clutch in every single game. And I think when she's doing something, you can recognize that our team is going to do something. Lauren Kelleher's leading off. I mean, she has one of the best eyes. It's funny, I think it says she has like 35 hits, and I was looking at it when she was in California. I can't even tell you the balls those kids were hitting. The difference was, a San Diego State type team, a Long Beach, a Fulton, they happily run down balls in the gap that are about to, hit the wall or steal doubles. And, but I think that those two are just catalysts. And, Kate Coker's come on. She's kind of found her groove in that 3 spot of bringing people in and driving people in. And then we have a freshman, Brooke Depiesi. She's awesome. I mean, she's a kid that just steps up, sees the ball and hits it. Like, she simplifies. And then you have Emily Gant back, who Emily's always a 300, 400 hitter, which you can't get better than that. She has speed, she has power. I think with the end of the order, I'd like them to obviously contribute more. I feel like for us, when, you have anyone from 6, 7, 8, 9 actually getting on and doing something, that top of the order is just outrageous. So, if there's runners on base for them, we have an opportunity to make something really happen. If it's just the top 4, you got to get lucky with one of them generating something. So I think for us, it's just that consistency and making sure, 1 through 9, they're tough outs and they're competing at the plate. And, we're not just relying on the top of the order.
You mentioned Kayla Rhodeson, 459 average, 4 homers, 25 RBIs, 6 doubles, 2 triples, slugging 684 on the season, has 45 hits, has scored 26 runs, gets on base 491. You've had some great hitters during your time there. Where does she rank? Because it's impressive numbers here. It's not only Patriot League Player of the Year type numbers. It's numbers, quite frankly, that should get recognized more across the country there. Give me what makes her so good?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think she should have been an All-American last year. I was pretty bitter. I feel like the Northeast gets shrugged a little bit. I mean, I'm talking, yes, if you want to look at the Patriot League conference and say it's not a top tier conference, or it's not the best pitching, or whatever comments would come of that. To me, hitting a softball is still difficult. And honestly, what she did preseason last year was absurd. And that was a really, really difficult schedule, one of the most difficult schedules in the country. Now we transition this year. I mean, she has hand-eye like no one I've ever seen. I mean, she can get to any pitch. So not only, you don't have to throw her a strike, she's going to make something happen with the ball. And I think that's what separates her from other people. Her zone and her coverage is just absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, Kayla is maybe the best hitter that I've seen come through our program. And, April Sutherland, I didn't coach her, but I had the pleasure of playing against her, and she was an All-American for BU. And she was one of those kids that could pretty much hit anything. And I feel like Kayla is very similar. So yeah, I hats off to her. I mean, she just keeps getting better and better. And I think right now, I don't know if she maybe is the 5th toughest to strike out in the country. Some sort of stat line like that. But yeah, definitely an absolute catalyst. And, I wish I could say that I was the same type of hitter in college, but man, I think she's got me beat on this one.
What does she plan to do? Would she be interested in playing professionally, whether it be here in the States or elsewhere? I mean, I have to ask, because I mean, she's so good. I'm assuming, what does she want to do after she's done?
I think for her, I mean, she's also a really, really smart kid. So I think she's the type of kid that would play as long as she could play. But, I look at her and it's funny when you get to BU, you got the best of both worlds, right? So you're going to be a top tier, athlete and, softball player, but you're also gonna be a top tier academic. So we call ourselves academic weapons. So Kayla is also an academic weapon. So an athletic weapon, academic weapon, but yeah, I don't know. I think Kayla is, it's pretty astounding to see how good she is and that she keeps getting better. So, definitely a name that I hope people pay attention to, because I do feel like she needs to get kudos, when it's deserved.
Let's talk about your pitching staff. Obviously, once again, depth. You got 3-headed monster that's kind of taking up the innings. Pretty balanced there. Just talk about your pitching staff, as you evaluate them through this point of the season.
I mean, I think Allie Boas obviously came on the scene last year and was incredibly steady. She locates like nobody else. I mean, I think for her, that's pretty much it. Like she finds a way to spin a ball and put it in the exact spot that we need it to. Great composure. I think for her, just like the mental toughness, like she's getting tougher and tougher out there. Just a matter of buying in and feeling like, hey, I'm the best person for this job. Lizzie Avery, I think for her, started a little bit slower this year than she would like, but I think she's finding her groove and getting back into it. You know, she throws hard. She's like 64, 65. And when she is on, my God, she is one of the toughest people I think to beat. She was one who went against UCF last year and did a really good job against them. And then we have a freshman, Casey Ricard, who, man, oh man, she is the real deal, my friend. She can just spin a ball. So she's had some big marquee wins. I think the one part about Case that she's figuring out is, hey, when you miss at this level, it travels pretty far. So I think for her, just finding her groove of trusting, like, hey, I got to spin the ball, I got to locate. I'm not just going to throw this by someone. So I think her growth preseason has been excellent. And you know, she was on the field for the Georgia Tech win. She was on the field for the Baylor win. So I think for her, just getting her feet wet and playing some really great competition is just going to make her better in the long run. So, I mean, the three of them can get the ball on any given day and start, and the three of them can come in and bail each other out on any given day. So, it's a really, really nice problem to have.
Yeah, it's definitely a big a good problem to have. What does it say too? Because people, you know, it's no matter who's pitching on your staff, you always produce a great pitching staff and with depth, which is not easy to do, as you know. There, you know, some year when you have young pitching, sometimes it takes a while to develop. What's been the key to developing pitchers and having pitchers that can contribute like you've done throughout your career there?
Yeah, I mean, I think just giving them the experience, right? And I think one of the things that I've learned, not later in my coaching career, but as I've kind of matured and grown a little bit, they got to find their way to get out of issues, right? They got to find their way to get out of trouble. And I feel like that's a really good sign. I think when you try to protect them too much and say, okay, I have someone else coming in behind you. All right, let's pull you out before, you know, they got to get a little grit and they got to find a way to win games, even when things aren't going well. And I feel like that's probably a testament to this pitching staff where they've had to work through some stuff and some adversity. And, you know, now you switch that and it's when you have a lot of innings, you figure things out. When you have a chance to actually compete and throw, you figure things out. And I think it's been more of that, like, I'm really big on live. I love when they throw live. Can they get our own hitters out over and over again? That's not an easy task, you know? So I feel like for them, it's just this constant competitive atmosphere of like, you know, if you want the ball, you got to compete, you got to earn it. And I think they all know that. And, you know, I think it's been really great for their development, but yeah, I mean, I've been really fortunate. So I feel grateful that they've chosen BU and, you know, I feel grateful that, you know, they've been loyal and they stay.
How are you a different coach today than you were when you took over the program?
I mean, I think I've just grown up in a sense of like, you know, understanding you got to kind of meet them where they are, right? There's good days and there's bad days. And, you know, I think for them, they genuinely care about how they perform and how they do. And I think for me, like, you know, there's some days that it's just not your day. So rather than making them feel bad, it's a matter of, okay, how do we readjust? How do we move on? And I do think I move on very quickly, which helps them move on. So, you know, you can address it after the field in that post game huddle, but as soon as it's done, right? You can't go back. You can't change the result. So what do? We got to kind of move forward. And I think, you know, that consistency is really helpful when you know what to expect. And, you know, hours later, we're not still, you know, harping on something that happened, you know, in the fourth inning. So, yeah, I mean, I think just being, you know, really consistent and, you know, finding a way to be supportive and making them feel great. And, you know, it's kind of helped overall with our performance.
Obviously, as you get ready for Patriot League play, conference play, what's fascinating is I think your league is starting to get some of that respect, obviously, with the success you've had, and quite frankly, the success Lehigh had. Obviously, Lehigh winning the conference last year and really carrying that momentum to this year with the wins they've had outside the league, beating Alabama, which really caught a lot of people's attention up in Tuscaloosa. They've beaten Iowa up in Tampa, among other teams. Just give me your thoughts on the league here and getting that, trying to get that respect with making headlines with wins that you have, wins that they have in others.
Yeah, I'll give a shout out to Colgate too, knocking off Minnesota. Yeah, I mean, to me, I think when you have parity and you have teams that are competing at the highest level in that they're winning on the national stage, I mean, all that's doing is just showing respect to the players that are in their conference. And, you know, I'm proud to be a part of this conference and I'm proud of the teams that are in this conference. And I think we have some really great athletes on each team. And, you know, I feel like sometimes being a, you know, high academic conference or a smaller conference in the Northeast, it doesn't always come with that tout. And I feel like for us, when you're in it, you understand that some of these kids are really talented players. Lehigh has some really talented players. Colgate has really talented players. And I think for us, it's when one rises and then another rises and then another rises, all that's going to do is just make our softball that much better. And to me, that's what it's all about. If you don't like a challenge, then you shouldn't coach.
Is that something you coaches talk about in your meetings through the off season and things? Is kind of getting that respect there? Because you mentioned Colgate. I'm glad you reminded me of that beating Minnesota. That was a big win for them. It feels like from the outside that this league maybe is as deep and talented as it's ever been. You've been in the league now a while. I mean, is that accurate? I mean, because now you're right. Teams now, it used to be schools would schedule schools from the Patriot League, and they're like, oh, just fill out the accepted. Now teams they're capable of knocking you out to the point where maybe some teams are going to be afraid to play you.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, I don't think it's a conversation or a topical conversation we have, but I do think if you look around, schedules are getting better and better, right? So like the preseason challenge is there. So you can see that, people are playing the best of the best and putting themselves in a position to compete. And I think with that, you're only going to get better. And, that's been my motto since I got here. Like, I was like, we're going to throw ourselves into the fire and, you hope that you can find a way to come out on top. And, each year we've been less and less burned. So it's one of those pieces where, you have to experience it in order to figure it out in the end. And I mean, our goal obviously is to find a way to get through a regional and to kind of leave our mark. And you can't do that if you never play them. Right. And I think for us, when we play them preseason, we compete against them. Not only is it making our program better and our team better, but it's making it less of a wow factor when we show up at a regional and you're on the field with a Florida or you're on the field with an Arkansas or Oklahoma. Right. It can't be, oh, we just see them on TV or they're just like this, program so far away that's just so good. It's more of like, now we're on the same field as them. We saw them. We were at the same tournament. We already played them, and I want it to be more like that, than to make someone bigger than it is. If you do that, they already have you beat. So.
No, and I think the league is starting to get respect because you've been a 3 seed in the past when you've been in the regionals. Lehigh has been a 3. I was just doing my bracketology, and I kind of have right now you guys projected, but whoever wins the Patriot League probably going to be a 3 seed again. So that's a step up because that was not always the case. So the committee is starting to at least give respect to the champion of the league too by not just automatically seeding a 4 seed.
Yeah, and I think that's important. I think just recognizing that, like the strength of schedule, we're putting ourselves out there. We're trying to compete. But yeah, I mean, across the board, the Patriot League has some really, really great athletes and some really strong competitors. And, winning isn't easy. And I think that that's the truth. It doesn't matter what conference you are in. It doesn't matter what game you play. It doesn't matter who you're facing. Winning is not easy. So I always think you need talent, but you also need a little bit of luck. And, for us, I think it's really great to have a conference that right now is showing that there's a lot of parity and there's a lot of teams that are ready to compete.
Is that why you always wear the sweatshirt and the hat when you're on with me on the show? Is that like a superstition deal there? Like, I got to get a good interview in?
I think this might just be a really bad hair day.
or Bill Belichick look. I like it. It's good.
Listen, hey, I'll take the Belichick look all day.
Just got to cut the sleeves off. That's the one missing piece,
yeah.
right? I'm curious for the returners. Is there an extra motivation, extra chip on the shoulder based on how it ended last season when Lehigh beat you? I know, give them credit, they played at a very high level. I know that's not the way your team, though, wanted to end the season because you had a great season up until that point. Ran into Lehigh, which, as a result, has become one of the more marquee matchups that I think softball fans are going to look forward to later this season. But for returners, is that something that they have a extra motivation, chip shoulder? Is that brought up at all, or no? Is that kind of in the rearview mirror?
So 7 years this is my 8th year. 7 years it's been Lehigh and BU in the championship. I mean, that's what it is, right? They know it, we know it. I think for us, yeah, last year it didn't end how we needed it to, but it's interesting. I feel like when I reflected back on the season last year, our offense kind of got quiet in the Army series, and I felt like we didn't kind of regroup or find our niche. I mean, we were putting up a lot of runs and, I think for us, like our offense went quiet. And unfortunately, when it goes quiet, it's really tough to win ball games. I thought Allie Boas deserved to win. I thought she did enough to win. I think our offense didn't do enough, so when you look at it from that perspective, Lehigh won. I thought Gabby Norrie and I thought Young threw great. I give all the credit in the world to their pitchers and I thought it was a good pitching duel, and they came out on top. And honestly, in sport, like that's the reality of it. It's one tough day. And to me, I'm like, okay, like if that's what it comes down to, like that's the way it goes. But yeah, no, I think for us, it's more of a focus on, what we're doing and are we playing good softball and what do we need to clean up and what do we need to get better at. But yeah, I mean, I think for us, I think every conference weekend makes a difference. But of course, we're ending this conference again this year with Lehigh, and so it'll be fun to battle them the last weekend and then battle them again. So yeah, I mean, they've done a great job, and we're excited to, kind of continue the unspoken rivalry.
The unspoken rivalry. Expand on that for those that may not be aware about the unspoken rivalry.
Well, I feel like they have Lafayette almost in their own hometown, so it's like, Lafayette and Lehigh play each other and they're like 2 miles apart. So, I think for us, it's a matter of Lehigh and BU have had some, really strong head-to-head battles, but I can't not give credit to some other teams that have been in the mix in the past years. I mean, Army's had some good years, Bucknell's had some good years. But for some reason it always ends up, Lehigh and BU in the end. So, I feel like it's one of those things that it's almost expected sometimes, but there's some really other great teams that, you never know when they're going to pop in the mix. So
Well, give me your thoughts on the rest of the league, and then we'll kind of circle back to that Lehigh kind of from a national perspective. But you mentioned it, Colgate showed what they could do beating Minnesota. Their team, Army's played well. Give me your thoughts on the rest of the league, and for those that are not familiar with the Patriot League, the conference tournament format, because it's unique. And it's, it is what it is. It's more than likely whoever wins the automatic bid will get that slot to the tournament. So just kind of describe the rest of the league for those that don't follow on a daily basis.
yeah, so they'll have the regular season champions, and that's just who wins the most games in conference. And then the top four teams make the tournament. And, obviously for us, you stay in the winner's bracket, you set yourself up pretty. You're in the loser's bracket. It's a little bit tougher, but, double elimination, and it's kind of who plays well on that weekend, like who gets hot that weekend. So definitely not an easy feat, but, certainly one that is very exciting. But yeah, no, I think the rest of the conference, I mean, Marissa's done a really great job at Colgate. I feel like for them, they always have the offense and they always put up runs. And, I think for them, we played some really tough games last year. And I think she continues to, kind of put that program on the rise. Holy Cross, I think their new coach, Kim, is doing an awesome job. And, I think for her, getting in her recruits and hustling and doing what she needs to do, I think at some point, you're going to kind of see more of them. I've been impressed with the way she kind of conducts herself and does stuff. Obviously you have Lehigh is really talented. I mean, Army is very athletic. I mean, they're the military, so I always have a lot of respect for Army. One, and what they do on a daily basis in their life on campus, but two, just their ability to just play with pure athleticism. And then you have Bucknell, who seems to, kind of turned a corner. I think they're doing a lot better this year. And I think they had a little tough go last year, but they're always scrappy. They always have good players that can compete and contribute. And then you have Lafayette, and I think Lafayette, they have a new coaching staff, and she's looking to kind of rebuild. She had a really great weekend against, Lehigh to start the season, like 3 close games, which is, that's promising. So, yeah, I mean, I think for us, it's, like I said, there's a lot of parity, and, I feel like the top is going to be a dogfight.
I agree. I mean, Sarah's kind of, I think that transition period for Sarah up there in Bucknell too, it's kind of, you're starting to see kind of her
Yeah.
fingerprints there without question. I totally agree with that. Um, People outside have circled your matchups with Lehigh. I mean, it's a big deal to the diehard softball fan. There will probably be the most followed weekend series. Quite honestly, the Patriot, nothing against the other teams, but it speaks to, as you mentioned, you played a lot. What's it like to be involved in a BU Lehigh game?
Huh. Never been asked this before. I've been, it's interesting. I think it's, you have very smart kids on the field, right? So you have kids that, and this is for both institutions. I mean, academically, intellectually, I mean, they're very smart. They care. And I think that's probably the one thing I tell you from both sides of it. Neither team wants to fail. Neither team wants to give in. And I think it's just like how deeply they care about kind of what they do. But also, I feel like they feel things on a different level, right? I think smart kids overanalyze, or they beat themselves up because there's this like need for perfection. And I think being a part of it, you recognize that you have two sides of, whether there's 10 people in your lineup, there's 20 kids that are taking the field that day that would kind of give anything to come out on top. And I think you can feel that, right? You can feel every single out is such a big deal and every single pitch is a big deal. And I mean, honestly, that's what it's all about. How cool is it to play in a game that like every single pitch matters and, you're feeling it to your core. And I think that's pretty much what it's like. I think from a coaching perspective, I feel like sometimes it's out of our control and what's going to happen is going to happen. So, you hope that you set up the right matchup or make the right call. But at the end of the day, it's about, kind of watching the kids do their thing and perform. And, you hope they're ready for the moment.
Yeah, no doubt. It's a fun matchup there. Do you allow yourself to peek what's going on nationally in the sport? Do you just kind of, or you just are one of the types that just kind of like locks in and says, I'm just focused on my team, focused on what we're doing. I don't pay attention because I know every coach is different. I'm curious because I know you have a passion for the game. So I'm just curious, do you peek out and watch what's going on, or are you one that kind of covers that up? No, I'm zoned in.
Oh no, I know everything that's going on. I love softball. um, I will watch any softball game that is on TV. I don't care if it's Flow, I don't care if it's ESPN. I will watch and support any game, anything that's on. I love it. I love having it on. I mean, coaches probably don't want to hear this, but I'm the person that's like hoping they tie it up in the last inning so the game will just continue. So I'll have more to watch. That is the type of fan I am. But yeah, no, I think it's awesome. I love following it. I think this is the best time of year. I just have such an interest and I feel like there's an investment in so many other programs, and whether that's because the coaches or you've played the team or kids on your team have friends on the other team. I find myself just like totally invested in programs that I have no business being invested in, just solely based on the fact that there's a connection in some way. But yeah, no, I'm softball. I'm all in all the time.
I like it. I like it. And you're probably watching some of that UCF games in particular, aren't you?
I
There you
am.
go.
Yeah.
I appreciate
I
that.
really like the color commentator. That's my it's my go-to.
That's good. I don't blame you. I like the color commentator as well. Each one to have. What are some of the topics as coaches in the sport that is being brought up right now? Is a topic that is on the horizon, either in the sport, whether it be an on the field thing, an off the field thing. Is there anything on the burner you think in the sport?
Um, I think for us, expanding the field of teams in the regionals and instead of just going to 16, like moving that up. I think for us,
Seeding
like
going
it's
from 16 to 32 seeds.
yeah, like I think it's I there's a lot of really great programs, right? And let's showcase that. I think that that's massive. I think that that's huge. I think it's going to help with, seeding. I think it's going to help with sending people places. I think it's going to give an experience to a San Diego State to maybe not get sent to UCLA, right? Like allowing them
Yeah.
to go somewhere else and showing what they can do. Cal State Fullerton, it's very similar. I think it's hard when I look at my kids who have had the experience of sitting there waiting for their name to be called for a regional. And I look at their faces when a school that they didn't even think of comes up, right? In Oklahoma State, a ULL, right? And then I look at the California schools and I feel like some of them don't get to experience that,
Right.
and I think that's not right. Like, let's allow them to, if we really want the best teams in the country, the best teams in the country will prevail. But like, you got to give people a shot and not put them up against, monsters year in and year out of teams that they play on a daily basis and already see all the time and are so familiar with, it'd be nice to see a San Diego State at a Kentucky regional, like
Right.
a Florida
Right. A
regional,
national
something.
tournament. Right. 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 Like
Yeah.
we saw that with volleyball, women's soccer in the fall. They experimented
Yeah.
with 32 seeds and created more unique matchups, try to create more balance in the brackets. And you're right. I wonder if the feedback from that may influence softball to maybe go in that direction in the future, because I know that has been
Yeah. I think
discussed.
it'd be cool. Yeah. I mean, to me, I feel like the usual stuff. I mean, I think overall with softball, I feel like, there's going to be rule proposals and things are going to come and things are going to go and we're going to like things, we're not going to like things. And, I just think across the board, like, umpires need to continue to kind of get better. I think we got to figure out what that looks like. And, I think obviously with the programs, those top tier programs and conferences shifting next year. I think that's going to be really exciting. Like there's a lot of cool things about our sport happening right now. And, rule proposals isn't one of them.
That's true. Is that going to be a challenge for you from a scheduling standpoint? Because there are going to be some teams that are kind of adjusting their own schedules based
Yeah.
on changing conferences. And there's a rippling effect on that because it affects the way they schedule. It might affect you because maybe, not to mention any names, but obviously you might have scheduled certain teams that are now changing conferences or vice versa. Maybe a team becomes open that you didn't expect. So how does that affect you as somebody that's looking to play games? And, these schools could be kind of in transition in their own way.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be interesting to see, you go through this for a couple of years in a row now, and there's like familiarity, who's going to be available, who's having tournaments when, what tournaments you like. And I think with some of the conferences shifting, obviously that might transition a little bit and change. But I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued to see, additions to the SEC and the Big 12. And I think the shifts are exciting and challenging. And I think watching some of those new matchups is going to be great. But there's teams that always want to play in games to be had. So I feel like from a scheduling perspective, maybe it throws some new people on our radar, which would be really exciting. So, we're pretty much down to play anyone at any given time. So we're all about games.
Hey, totally. What's it been like? Talk for those that may not be aware, but you're at home now, trying to get home games. Obviously, there's some weather challenges that come with that. But what's it like? Talk about your facilities there.
Yeah, I mean, the Northeast is, it cooperates. It doesn't cooperate. I don't know. I can't. We can't make a read on any given week here. It looks like it's going to rain and snow, and then it's 50 or 60. So, I wouldn't say the meteorologists here we're missing a little bit, but no, I feel like our facility definitely needs some upgrades, and hopefully that's in the future. But yeah, it doesn't handle water too well, so not ideal in our situation. But we have UConn coming to town tomorrow, which would be great. That's a really good team, and we're excited to play them. But yeah, I mean, the one great thing about the Northeast, I can tell you, is there's a lot of Division I institutions in a very short range, a very small distance. So whether it's Maine, Connecticut, Vermont, New Hampshire, like there's Division I teams everywhere, all within driving distance. So I think the one good thing is we'll never be short on midweek. So that is the one exciting part about being from here. I feel like we can have a really strong preseason, but then come back and, get to play, a good chunk of games just based on the distance.
Of course, like, it's your weather you're describing. It's kind of like hockey weather, which is a good segue because the Frozen Four is right in Tampa this year of all places. Although Tampa's a hockey town, people may not realize that don't follow hockey, but with the Tampa Bay Lightning success, that's actually a big hockey town. But it's interesting that the Frozen Four will be there, and I know there's excitement up there about that, isn't there, with BU involved?
It is. It is. Yeah. I mean, this is the thing, any time one of your teams gets to compete on a national level, and make it to have a chance to win a national championship. I mean, you can't not be excited about that. So, yeah, I mean, I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled for the program. And, one of our players, Reagan Kelly, she actually dates on the hockey team. And, so it's been exciting for us to kind of follow along and, have that connection. So, a shout out to Case McCarthy, because, he's great. He actually got injured, had a pretty scary injury in one of the final games, but, he's doing okay. But yeah, it's been fun to follow, to, kind of support the program. And, yeah, we're excited to see what happens. Minnesota looks tough, but, we'll be ready.
Yeah, Boston and BU and against Minnesota. It's a big matchup there in the Frozen Four, which will get national TV there. Do you get a chance to ever go to some of the hockey games there? I know the schedules don't really complement each other with softball and hockey, but I'm curious because you're one of the few coaches. Well, you're one of the few coaches I can even ask that question. I usually, most of the softball coaches don't even have that option.
Yeah, they actually start in October, which is crazy. So like October, November, December, usually those are pretty much the months that people are, going to the hockey games. And then obviously once it gets to the exciting part of the year where they're in the Hockey East matchups, we're pretty much on the road. So I find that it's BU softball as a whole. We have connections to basketball. We have connections to hockey, any different computer could have a different game at any different time. So we have some loyal to watching softball, some watching hockey, some watching basketball. So it's a good mix in our team. So we pretty much know what's going on across the country on all ranges.
That's very good, and I know you all be following the Frozen Four during your softball series. See how that goes. Last question for you: what's going to be the keys for your team this year to accomplish your goals in the league and beyond?
I mean, I think just playing a clean game. I know that sounds simple, but I think when there's offensive efficiency and we're getting it done, I think the one thing about our offense is when we have base runners and we move them and we have productive outs, right? Whether it's a hit or just moving someone, advancing them, that is when we are the toughest to beat. We don't have a lot of power numbers. I feel like we manufacture very well. So when we're manufacturing runs, I think we're at our best. So I think that consistency of, putting the ball in play, hitting behind runners, advancing people, hitting deep fly balls, hitting sac fly, like those things make a difference. So, timely hitting, smart hitting is going to probably play a key. And, I think we have a really great pitching staff and just doing the job behind them. They can strike people out, but I wouldn't say that's their overall game. We got to make plays. So, I think for us, just, hey, peaking at the right time, playing hot when it matters in May.
It's when it matters the most, and we look forward to it. And people always enjoy watching your teams play, and we always appreciate you coming on with us, even with your hectic schedule. Always a pleasure. Great to continue this tradition now, going 5 years
that.
strong. 5 years strong. I mean, for whatever reason, you keep saying yes to come on every time.
Listen, it's hey, I'm all for it. It's a great relationship to have, and I appreciate what you do for our game. And I really do enjoy listening to you call UCF games. But thank you for shining a light on so many different programs and so many different coaches and so many different athletes. It matters. So I appreciate you, and I'd come back anytime.
I always appreciate that, Coach. Good luck the rest of the way, and we'll definitely be in touch and talk soon.
Thank you, my friend.